It's the people who say that the men are leading the woman astray, but I say that the women of today smarter than men.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, Aurora is delighted to have me back with her. She smells buildy, and I'm not sure that she approves entirely of buildy. However, she's going to forgive her Mutty-Boo for her disloyalty in loving someone else. And without further ado, I will therefore now plunge right in with something from Lynn Feldman. Dear Lady C and adorable fur babies, what is this latest drivel by the Viper and Vapid? I love it. About renting a room in Kensington Palace and furnishing it themselves. I do believe I saw an entire flock of pigs flying over as I write this. My dear, you did. Flying pigs ad nauseam. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I'm going to lay my cards on the table and tell you. Harry and Meghan will do anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything to keep in the news, to keep themselves relevant, to keep themselves topical, to have everybody talking. It is a master plan, the like of which Joseph Goebbels himself could not have improved upon. Do you honestly think that King Charles III and Prince William would tolerate having Harry and Meghan having a flat, no matter how small, in Kensington Palace after all that has happened, with easy access to everybody, everything, everywhere? But of course, if Harry and Meghan moot it as a possibility, that means they're in the running. They're still here. They can still be factors to be reckoned with. Blah, 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 blah. Lynn Feldman, you're absolutely right. It is the Vapid and the Viper. And renting a room, not even a flat, a room. So now Kensington Palace is a boarding house, rather along the lines of the housing unit at the South African High Commissioner's residence. Remember? The housing unit that nearly burnt Archie to death when they were there on the tour, that Meghan had people jubilantly dancing in the streets just to not only celebrate her marriage, but her arrival. You really couldn't make any of this up. You really couldn't. Marina Parignani says, "Good morning, Lady C. I suppose you know that Harry was definitely stripped of his HRH title. The Crown apologizes for taking action late in time because the King and both houses of government have now decided so. Harry shall be welcome to the UK, but only without his wife." Well, it's certainly taken them long enough to partially, and I use the word reservedly, But decidedly, they have updated the website somewhat. You know, the palace is a very interesting institution. It can be astonishingly inept and ill-considered and ineffective in some areas, while it is the absolute opposite in others. I mean, the wild inconsistency. I've crossed swords with very senior members of the household over things that I cannot go into at this point, where I thought that they were being tremendously naive and tremendously inept. I've had a little look at the website. A study in ineptitude. But I get it. Because the reality is Harry has a place in the line of succession, and Meghan is his wife. And they don't want to be accused by what they regard as critics who would maybe jump on the colour bandwagon. And so they are bending over backwards, not really to facilitate Harry and Meghan, and they are using the line of succession place. And I suppose also they are very slightly keeping the door open in the hope that softly catching monkey, as the expression goes. And Harry is a total ape, and he is ape something or the other over Meghan. And well, Meghan's no ape. She is a definitely superior form of Homo sapiens, because she has levers that can drive her vehicle into terrain and into little corners that you and I wouldn't even dream of imagining, much less suspecting that they might exist. But yes, they have finally removed the Royal Highness, and that's 3 years down the line. I mean, do you begin to see how inept they are in certain ways? But there is merit in the ineptitude, I'm sure they think. So let me go on to what Audrey Naylor says. Oh, actually, no, before I go on to what Audrey Naylor says, I realise that actually you say that Harry shall be welcome to the UK, but only without his wife. I don't know where you get that from. Of course, any parent wants to reconcile with his or her child. So to that extent, you might be onto something. But don't think attitudes have softened or are in danger of softening where either Harry or Meghan are concerned. And I'll tell you better. At this point, Harry without Meghan is like a leper without bandages. Go figure, as they would say in New York. Oh dear. Audrey Naylor says, Lady C, can you please tell why the royal website Meghan is like a working royal? I'm afraid words are missing here. So she will get credibility for this, and she can sell herself as a working member of the royal family. Thank you, Lady C. I think you are referring to the fact that the royal website still has not updated to reflect accurately the reality of the situation. So they have Harry and Meghan splitting their time between the US and the UK and honouring their positions and acting on behalf of the king and the monarchy and the people and all sorts of wonderful things that don't exist. This is the ineptitude that I'm speaking about. I mean, it's almost an insult to the intelligence of people, and rarely to people who feel very strongly that the least the royal family's website handlers can do is put up accurate information that accurately conveys the reality of the situation, which is that Harry and Meghan are living permanently at this point in the United States of America, and they are not undertaking any duties on behalf of the king, nor are they functioning in any capacity for the monarchy or this country or the Commonwealth. I mean, the website is actually beyond belief. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And it's almost worse that they have altered it to remove the Royal Highness, but haven't actually removed the totally untrue and inaccurate information about Harry and Meghan effectively performing duties on behalf of the family and the institution and the nation. I mean, you talk about doolally. Anyway, I learnt a long time ago, and it's a pity they haven't learnt it yet, but then their lives have been a lot easier than mine. There comes a time when your best bet is to hold your ground firmly and fairly and realistically, and not pussyfoot around and pretend that all is good in the Garden of Eden when you are actually more in the Garden of Gethsemane. Raku Radio says, I saw Harry on the news tonight. He was participating in a promotional talk about participation in sport. However, the report quickly jumped to Spare and his falling out with Charles and William. It completely overshadowed his sensible words on sports participation. Well, you know, if you have a nosegay of sweet-scented flowers and you haven't bothered to bathe for 9 months and you've been rolling in the sewer, don't expect people to smell the nosegay or focus on the nosegay. They are going to focus on the stench emanating from you. as a result of your habits and practices. Yes, Harry was in Japan. He flew in. He was with Nacho Figueras. He has been attending the International Sports Promotion Society's Sports Values Summit Special Edition in Tokyo. And he was very friendly. It's really interesting. When Harry is without Meghan, he reverts to his previous type of personality. It's only when he's with Meghan that we see Mr. Misery and Mr. Oh, everything pains me so much. When he's on his own, or without her, I should say, more accurately, he is entirely different. He is far more relaxed, he's far more outgoing. He was even nice to the journalists and jocular, and he told his audience that he would happily live here if you'd have me. Well, of course, we know that's just charm laid on, but nicely laid on. And, you know, he was smiling, he was laughing, he was waving to the crowds. He was just old Harry. So the old Harry may have been stepped upon by Meghan with her size 11 feet, but she hasn't entirely crushed him yet. So let's see. Let me see if there's anything that I have failed to cover in this. Yeah. They then mention Spare. Well, as I said, the stench. The stench. Do you think he's going to be able to live that down in a short space of time? If ever? I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. But we will see. Django Sleen says, who is the deluded in all this nonsense about a movie? Netflix, that's who. Throwing subscribers money at the pair. Yes, you're referring to Meet Me at the Lake. I've not read the book. I'm afraid I'm not into chick lit. My time is too valuable to waste it on rubbish. I understand it's not a particularly good book. There are whispers that the whole thing was orchestrated by the publishers and Netflix to be able to have a vehicle for Harry and Meghan to be involved with, because Netflix is desperate to try to make good on some of its investment. And they understand that good news, bad news, as long as it's news, there's the possibility of making money. And there are discomforting questions being asked as to whether that book, which evidently was written by a mega fan of Meghan's, has not been actually a commission that has actually done rather well for the author. she obviously has some talent because she's now written 2 best-selling books. I mean, they're rubbish, evidently, but I'm not going to denigrate good rubbish, and they're evidently good rubbish. And people like them. I mean, people liked Barbara Taylor Bradford, they liked, who actually was quite a fine writer. So I shouldn't actually even use her as an example. I should really use Barbara Cartland, who made a shed load of money over the decades by writing rubbish. But Danielle Steele, she also wrote a superior form of rubbish that did very well. So, it doesn't have to be great literature to be entertaining and have a valid place in the scheme of things. But that book did not sell for $3 million. And if Netflix bought the serial rights, it increases the chances that the whole thing is a setup. Now, it's actually usual, I will tell you, for movie producers, TV producers, I suppose nowadays you'd say media content producers, to buy the movie rights to a book. I've had some of my books sold for movies, and as Antonia Fraser said about hers, 9 times out of 10 nothing happens. They're optioned and the option lapses. And what's really interesting is that this has been done at a time where SAG is on strike. So unless they're going to be union busting, there's no way that program, film, media, entertainment, whatever you want to call it, can be made for now. Because even if they try to make it abroad, that is going to have such a black mark against all of them that I think it would be a grave mistake for them to do something like that. Anyway, there's no way they've spent $3 million on that book. No way. There was no bidding war. Books that have had huge bidding wars, that were worldwide hard copy bestsellers, have gone for a lot less than that. It is all PR. And PR in this instance can also have 2 other letters, BS. Elizabeth Ellen Carter says, "You're right, Lady C. I am an author of historical romance novels, and £3 million for film rights is extremely unlikely. I know someone who received a $500,000 film option over 10 years, but that was for a best-selling memoir." Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I know. I've had books that have done far better than this book has done. Meet Me at the Lake. I mean, it's not even a proper book. It didn't even start out as a hardcover. It went straight into paperback. That's like a made-for-TV movie. I mean, No quality whatsoever. Per bon ton, to put it another way. Per bon ton. If she got $30,000, that's definitely acceptable. If she got $300,000, she's really lucky. But you see, they can claim anything. They can say anything. And what really astonishes me is how, yet again, the press shows what cut and paste merchants they are. They're not even proper journalists. They don't even question the claim that the book has sold for $3 million. I mean, page 6 in New York has run that piece of rubbish as if it's a fact when it's fiction. And everybody else picks it up and just follows suit. But I'll tell you how these things work. William Morris Endeavour and Ari Emanuel have friends on page 6. They have planted this. It's supposed to set the tone. It's supposed to stimulate interest. It's supposed to let people think, oh, this is going to be a fantastic thing. It's top of the line stuff. It's going to be worth watching. I'm sure people will look at it out of curiosity value because it's associated with Harry and Meghan. And they're gonna look at it because they are going to be schadenfreuders. That's what they're going to be. They're going to be looking at it thinking, oh, this is so terrible. It's just ghastly. And have the most wonderful time picking it to pieces. Miss Fish and Chips says, I also watched Suits long before Meghan Markle married into the royal family. And had she not married Harry, I wouldn't have remembered her or her co-star. I certainly didn't know their names. It was Rick Hoffman who was the star, in my opinion. Hilarious. And Gina Torres. Meghan was background noise, but she made a tidy sum of money from it. She did earn respectably from it. That's absolutely true. We need to give credit where it is due. She did very nicely financially out of it. Not a great fortune, but certainly nothing to sneeze at. And I, for one, am not sneezing. Both my father and Aristotle Onassis used to say, you can always tell when somebody has no money and has never had money and will never have money. They say, oh, it's only £30 or only £300 or only £3,000 or only £300,000 when the word only should never be attached to money, which is true. Well, I used to look at Suits, and I have to tell you, I couldn't tell you the names of any of them. None. I can now tell you the names of some of them. Gina Torres, because you mentioned her name, and she was much more of a star. And that Adams boy, whatever his name is. And there was the handsome one whose name escapes me as well, you see? I mean, successful, certainly newsworthy in a very minor way, but stars? No. And remember, when Weller did its ad with Meghan, and you can see it on YouTube to this day, it's called The Starlet and the Stylist. So even when Weller was paying good money to have Meghan promote their product, they didn't claim that she was a star, because she wasn't. She was a starlet. I mean, a starlet is almost an insult. Stephanotis says, Lady C, can you please comment on Dame Caroline Dinnage's scathing comments on the toxic culture at ITV's This Morning, and how that squares up with Dame Caroline McCall's evidence to the Parliamentary Committee? Caroline Dinage is a dame in her own right, and she is also Lady Lancaster of Kimbolton. She is an MP. She has been the MP for Gosport since 2010. She's a Conservative. She is the Minister of State for Digital and Culture. And when Dame Caroline McCall came before her committee, which was questioning her on the claims that she, Caroline McCall, was running a toxic organization at ITV, culturally toxic, and that people were being bullied and mistreated left, right and centre, especially on the This Morning programme. And I have to tell you, the culture of abusiveness started with Philip Schofield. He abused many people, including me. He used to abuse his guests under the guise of interviewing us. He was abusive. Aside from anything else, it's bad manners, but it's also very unprofessional, because you actually don't get a good interview by abusing your guests. But evidently, the culture on the floor was so toxic. And of course, Dame Caroline McCall, when she was giving evidence before the parliamentary inquiry, I don't know no, everything was fine. Everybody just got along so well. And Philip Schofield, well, he's turned out to be such a disappointment because he lied to me. Poor innocent me. I've been his victim. I'm the latest victim of his. Well, Dame Caroline Dinage has written a letter which has been published, in which she told Caroline McCall that she, Caroline Dinage, and the other committee's members had been contacted by, and I'm going to quote, a large number of individuals in the weeks after Caroline McCall's appearance before Parliament. And I'm quoting now, "These individuals speak with great pride about working at ITV and are hugely positive about many of their colleagues. However, they also raise claims of toxic working cultures, bullying, discrimination and harassment. Some of them have described how their decision to raise concerns within ITV has led to further bullying and discrimination, and in some cases having to leave the organisation with a settlement agreement. In other words, they were booted out and had to sign NDAs in return for getting a reasonably decent, but rarely a totally unacceptable severance package, because they shouldn't have been severed at all. Anyway, I'll continue. It is easy to understand why those individuals, especially where they have left ITV and do not wish to relive their traumatic experiences, do not feel capable of attempting to report their concerns, or that ITV will take them seriously. She said that a large number of ITV's This Morning's staff, past and present, have raised claims of quote-unquote toxic working cultures, bullying, discrimination and harassment. I find it extraordinary that Dame Caroline McCall is still hanging on to her job, because I know, as a result of an experience I had when I was ambushed by ITV, throwing me in at the deep end in a pond of sharks when they had asked me to swim with dolphins, and I complained about it to Dame Caroline McCall and Sir Peter Bazalgette, who was the chairman. I was fobbed off with underlings answering. She never, ever once even bothered to answer me. The woman is adept at wearing high-vis vests that are absolutely bulletproof. So no matter what you shoot at her, the bullet's gonna bounce off. I personally think she should be made to stand down. I think we need, with all of these scandals that have been taking place recently, NatWest, Dame Alison Rose, ITV, Dame Caroline McCall, and you notice they're all dames. Isn't it interesting that nowadays it seems that as long as you're ruthless and successful enough in making money, you get made a dame. I mean, talk about demeaning the honours system. But what is the alternative? These people need to be made to resign. They need to lose their jobs, and they need to lose their redundancy packages. Dame Alison Rose is evidently going to walk with something between £3 and £5.5 million in a redundancy package, even though she headed up an abusive culture that was depriving people of their legal rights and civil liberties and then lying about it to the BBC. She shouldn't be rewarded. Dame Caroline McCall should be booted out, and she shouldn't be rewarded either. They're supposed to be getting a reward for having done a good job. You're not supposed to be getting a reward for having done a bad job. And you're certainly not supposed to be getting rewarded for having overseen a culture of abusiveness, which is what both these women have done. And interesting, that the feminists are all absolutely silent about the fact that women have turned out to be as terrible as men when the chips are down and their bank accounts and their kudos are concerned. Don't hear anything from the sisters about the disappointment that we should all have, because I remember when I was young, there was hope that if women were in the marketplace, things would be better. Not that they would manage to not only adopt the roles of men, but adopt their bad habits as well. Anyway, let's see what happens, because this is an important issue, and there is no reason why this morning, which is supposed to be an entertaining show, should be run in the toxic way that it has always been run since Philip Schofield took over. It's culturally abusive. Let's wait and see what happens, because I think Dame Caroline McCall has shown that she is either totally inept and irresponsible in having overseen such a culture of abusiveness without being aware of it, which is what she's trying to claim. So she was negligent in sussing out what was going on in the marketplace. I'm sorry, when you're responsible for lives, you should make sure that those lives aren't being crushed and you're too big for your boots to even check it out. Inept. She's inept at best, negligent. But I don't think it's accidental, from my experience with her and the slippery way she dealt with me, and also the slippery way that she dealt with Parliament. I think she knows exactly what she's about. She likes to coat herself in Teflon. That's what she likes to do. Anyway, let's see what happens, because I think we need to have the banking and media sectors cleaned up. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. And actually, no, before we go, I'm going to make another point. You know, I would sooner have Dame Alison Rose and Dame Caroline McCall have a lover on the side, or a secret sapphic life, and do their job properly. Because what they do when the lights are out should be none of our business. I'd sooner have that than have them sanctimoniously, and we're so worthy and we're so good and we're so woke and we're so wonderful and we're so caring. Just keep those little people away from us. And we're not interested in their rights. We're interested in our power. I'd sooner they had displayed some humanity, even with a foible or two, than to show us how totally inhumane they really are. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please remember, keep the questions and comments coming in so I can know what you would like us to talk about. Okay, thank you so much. God bless. And if you have really enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care.